Overwatch has always had a way of creating characters that instantly pull you in. Whether it's the design, the story, or the gameplay, there's usually something that makes you think, yeah, that belongs in Overwatch. And then there's Sierra, because with Sierra, I don't really feel that. I don't feel excitement, I don't feel curiosity, and mostly just feel confused. And that's the problem. Sierra feels like a hero with an identity crisis. One that, if left alone, could actually start affecting what Overwatch's heroes are supposed to feel like. So this is a critique of Sierra, and yeah, I am going to be harsh, not because I hate her, but because I want to understand where it went wrong. So let's break it down. My first issue of Sierra starts with something simple. She doesn't stick. And that's a huge problem for an Overwatch hero. Because Overwatch characters usually have that instant readability. You can glance at them and immediately understand who they are meant to be in the world. Sierra doesn't really do that. It's not that the design is bad, it just doesn't have that distinct Overwatch identity. That feeling where you see a silhouette and instantly go, that's from Overwatch, as I said earlier. When a design was first revealed, I was already a bit unsure of this. Even compared to Season 1 heroes, she stood out in a way that didn't feel intentional. Then came the cinematic, and I genuinely sat there thinking, is that it? It doesn't really focus on Sierra in a way that builds her personality. Instead, it feels like it's pushing the wider story forward more than it's introducing her as a character. And don't get me wrong, that wider story needed progress, but there's a balance. A hero cinematic should still make you care about the hero first. Compare that to Soldier in cinematic. You get personality, motivation, moral tension, and then a fight that reinforces who she is. Sierra's cinematic gives us a climb, an interception, a fight with Emre, and a loss. It tells us what she's doing, but not really who she is yet. And by the end of it, I wasn't excited for Sierra. I was just waiting for more context. This is where things start to feel like wasted potential. The short story and lore around Sierra introduce something genuinely interesting, the Soldier Enhancement Program. That alone is a goldmine, because now we're talking about legacy experiments, hidden history, and characters like Reaper and Soldier being tied into something much larger. Then comes the reveal. Sierra's mother is one of the original, if not the original Super Soldier. That's the kind of lore reveal that should instantly reshape how a character is perceived. But instead of making Sierra feel more defined, it kind of does the opposite. Because the story starts leaning more into her mother than into Sierra herself. And that's where the issue is. Sierra starts to feel less like a character with her own identity and more like a vehicle for someone else's story. And ironically, her mother ends up sounding like the more compelling character. An ex-super soldier on the run, tied into Talon, connected to the Serum storyline. That alone sounds like a hero in her own right. So you end up with this strange imbalance where the supporting idea feels stronger than the main character. And Overwatch has shown before that you can advance the wider story without losing focus on the hero. Sojourn, Reinhardt, Malga, they all manage to expand the world while still making you care about the person at the center. Sierra doesn't quite land that balance. And as a result, she feels like she's slightly outside her own story. This is where Sierra almost had me, because there is one part of her kit that actually stands out, the drone. That thing is her identity, at least in my head. It's the one mechanic that feels like it could define her whole gameplay style. When I saw it in the cinematic, especially during the movement sequences, I immediately thought of potential. Cornering, repositioning, creative movement play, something that gives real freedom, almost like Ball's grapple in terms of expression. But then you see how it actually works in game and it just doesn't reach that idea. It becomes something far more limited, far more linear, and that's the pattern with Sierra. The fantasy is always bigger than the execution. She's shown to be about climbing, movement, expression through traversal, and then she has a grenade. It feels disconnected from what she's supposed to represent. And then there's the auto-lock ability, which mechanically is fine, but thematically it just feels like a generic damage tool rather than something that reinforces who she is as a character. Even Emre's kit, which is still fairly simple, feels like it has more identity in how it asks you to think about positioning and timing. Sierra, on the other hand, feels like she has pieces that don't fully connect, and that's what makes her hard to latch onto. Not because she's weak, but because her kit doesn't clearly tell you what she's supposed to be good at beyond doing damage. And the ultimate falls into the same category. It works, it functions, but it doesn't really evolve her identity in a meaningful way. And that's the core issue. The idea is there, the execution just doesn't match it. At the end of the day, Sierra isn't a disaster of a character. She's more of a missed opportunity. A hero where every part of her feels like it almost reaches something interesting, but never quite fully commits to it. And that's why she stands out, not for what she is, but for what she could have been. But that's just my take. Maybe you like her gameplay, maybe you're invested in her story and where it's going. I'd genuinely be interested to hear what you think, because this is one of those cases where I hope I'm wrong. Thank you for watching, and if you did enjoy this, I hope you subscribe. That would mean a whole bunch to me. So, see ya!